I was cutting through the underground parking garage when I saw it. My ex's sedan was rocking violently on its suspension. Behind the tinted reinforced glass, I heard a muffled, tear-choked scream from my best friend. No, please stop. Any normal person would have pulled out their phone to record the affair. But me? I'm the ultimate ride-or-die bestie. A hot surge of adrenaline slammed into my brain, bypassing all logic. You filthy animal. Forcing yourself on my girl in broad daylight? Baby, hang on. I'm coming for you. I didn't hesitate. I snatched the fire extinguisher from the wall and went full-on berserk, hammering the heavy canister against the windshield of his $1,000,000 ride. Crack. Smash. Crash. Safety glass sprayed like diamonds. The screaming inside turned into a terrified shriek. Before the two naked bodies inside could even process the assault, I jammed the nozzle of the dry chemical extinguisher through the shattered window and pulled the trigger. Fush. A suffocating, blinding cloud of white powder instantly filled the cabin. The air turned into a choking, chemical nightmare. Cough. Cough, gag, hacking and retching. They finally kicked the doors open. Two pale, shivering figures looking like deep-fried shrimp covered in flour tumbled onto the concrete, scrambling for cover. The garage smelled of harsh chemicals and raw panic. The guy wiped the white dust from his eyes, his pupils bloodshot with pure unadulterated rage. He locked eyes with me, and his jaw dropped. You lunatic, have you lost your mind? I'm your. Before he could finish, I launched a brutal kick squarely into his chest, sending him sprawling back into the wreckage. Shut your mouth. A rapist trying to talk back? Security, get me some rope. We've got a perverted freak attacking someone down here. My voice echoed off the concrete walls like a siren. It was rush hour at the corporate plaza. The blaring car alarms and my frantic screeching drew a crowd of onlookers like moths to a flame. Phones were out, flashes popping like a paparazzi frenzy. My heart hammered against my ribs. I snatched a grimy, sweat-stained security guard's parka and lunged forward. Baby, stay with me, I've got you. I wrapped my best friend Elena in the heavy moldy jacket, cocooning her like a mummy. I pulled the collar tight, so tight it covered her nose and mouth. Elena thrashed inside the fabric, muffled sounds of MP erupting from the coat. I pinned her down, turned to the gathering crowd of lens-wielding vultures, and let out a sob that tore through the air. Don't record this. Please show some decency. Give her some dignity. I knelt on the floor, cradling the mummy in my arms, tears streaming down my face. She's the victim. Do you know who she is? She was just voted Teacher of the Year in this city. She's supposed to be teaching children tomorrow. If her students' parents see this, how will she ever stand in front of a class again to think she was assaulted by this monster? God have mercy. The words Teacher of the Year hit the crowd like a shockwave. The laughter died, replaced by gasps of genuine horror. Wait, that's her? The one from the news? That's sick. In the middle of the day? Is he even human? Someone break his jaw. A few hot-headed employees were already rolling up their sleeves, ready to jump the guy. Inside the parka, Elena was fighting for air, trying to push her head out to explain. But I wailed even louder, drowning out her muffled cries. Baby, don't be scared. I don't care that you're dirty. Nobody will ever know it was you. As long as I'm breathing, I won't let that scum's filth stain your reputation. That was when Marcus finally cleared the dust from his lungs. He crawled halfway out of the car, his face white, his features twisted in fury. Sarah, are you blind? It's me. I'm your boyfriend. The entire room, no, the whole garage went dead silent. Every head swiveled between us, hungry for the drama. I stood frozen for a beat, acting like the betrayal had just shattered my soul. Then I let out a scream that was even more pathetic and piercing than the last. Ah! I lunged at Marcus and swung my arm with everything I had. Slap! The sound was like a gunshot. The force sent a cloud of white powder flying off his face. You have the nerve to call yourself my boyfriend? I was shaking, my finger inches from his nose, tears pouring down. How could you do this to my best friend? Do you even have a soul? Marcus was reeling, clutching his cheek, his teeth bared. Are you crazy? She was the one who seduced me. Slap! Another strike, even harder this time. I felt the skin break at the corner of his mouth. You fucking filthy liar. I won't let you drag her name through the mud. I turned to the crowd sobbing. People, judge for yourselves. My best friend loathes cheaters. She's a woman of absolute integrity. She's going to be my maid of honor next month, for heaven's sake. You think she'd throw her life away for someone like him? I locked eyes with Marcus. My gaze filled with the jagged edge of betrayal. Marcus, you're so desperate to save your own skin you'd destroy an innocent woman's reputation? You're not even a man. You're trash. The crowd swayed. Someone muttered, yeah, that's twisted. Who hits on their best friend's bride-to-be? He definitely drugged or forced her. Look at her, she's so terrified she can't even speak. The sympathy in the room was palpable. Marcus was officially the villain. Sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus was thrashing in the back seat, shouting at the arriving officers like he'd found salvation. Officer, it's a setup. It was consensual. This crazy woman assaulted me. I want to press charges. Still lying, I stepped in front of Elena like a mother hen shielding her chicks. I pointed straight at the back seat of his wrecked ride. Officers, look. Look under the seat. That's the evidence. A cop peered inside with a frown, pulling out a pair of fuzzy pink handcuffs and a leather crop with a pair of sterile evidence tweezers. A wave of knowing titters rippled through the crowd. Even the cops looked uncomfortable, their expressions shifting from duty to disgust. I pointed at the items, my entire body trembling. Why are you laughing? This is sick. My friend is a teacher. She doesn't even wear skirts above her knees. She's the most conservative person I know. I glared at Marcus, who was being dragged out and pinned against the hood. Marcus, you're a deviant. You forced her to use these? Is that how you treat a woman? You're a monster. The crowd stopped laughing. A respectable woman wouldn't touch that gear. He had to be the sick one. Marcus turned purple. Those are just toys. It was consensual. That's our business. Business? I gasped, turning to the police with eyes full of tears. Officer, who uses a whip in a healthy relationship? Please save her. She's been screaming for mercy. The police officer looked at the gear, then back at the hysterical crowd. The pressure was on. Enough. Save it for the station. Click. The handcuffs went on Marcus. He was shoved into a cruiser, shouting into the void. I stood there clutching a shivering Elena, refusing to give a statement. Officer, can we get her to the hospital first? She inhaled so much dust and she's in a state of severe shock. She needs medical care now. I squeezed the cop's hand, my voice cold as ice. We want a full medical exam. A gynecological report. We're going to sue this animal for every cent he has. Elena went rigid at the word exam. The ambulance roared toward the city hospital. Once on the stretcher, Elena was finally freed from the coat. She was hacking, coughing up white dust, her face a mask of trauma. When I reached for her purse, she froze, her eyes widening in sheer terror. Baby, don't move, the doctor said, your airways are scorched. I gently pinned her hand down and snatched her phone. Elena was crying, shaking her head, her throat raw and failing. You want to call your parents, don't you? Don't worry, I'll show them exactly what this monster did to you. I swiped her phone across her face. Beep, Face ID unlocked. Elena squeezed her eyes, shut her body shuddering. A nurse hurried over. Ma'am, stop moving, you're on and four. It's okay, she's just panicked. She wants her mom. I cooed to the nurse. I turned my back to Elena and dialed the number of her uptight, image-obsessed parents. The moment they picked up, I didn't say a word. I just started wailing. Auntie, something happened to Elena. Marcus, that animal. I shouldn't have let him near her. I gave them just enough. Assault. Undressed. Police are here to trigger their worst nightmares. Every word was a needle to their pride. 20 minutes later, they burst into the ER. Her father looked like he'd aged 10 years. His knuckles white around his walking cane. His face a storm of rage. Dad. Mom. Elena shrank under the blankets. Before they could speak, I dropped to my knees. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I didn't see him for the beast he was. He dragged her into the garage. If I hadn't arrived, he would have destroyed her. Her mother started wailing, clutching her daughter. My poor baby. What kind of karma is this? How are you supposed to get married now? Her father banged his cane on the floor. Where is he? I'll kill him. And you? Why were you even with a man like that? Do you know what this does to our reputation? Elena looked ready to faint. She opened her mouth to speak, to defend herself. But I lunged up, clapping a hand over her mouth. Doctor, get in here. She's hallucinating. She needs a sedative now. The staff rushed over. What's happening? She's in shock. She's trying to defend her attacker. He's completely broken her mind. In the chaos, I leaned in close to her ear, my whisper sounding like a velvet-lined threat. Baby, take a good look at your father's cane. She went rigid. Think carefully. I breathed. If you say it was forced, you're the victim. Everyone will pity you. Your parents will shield you. But if you say it was consensual, knowing how much your father cares about his image, do you think he'll stop at just shouting? He might beat you to death right here in this room. I paused, my voice chilling. And tomorrow the headlines will read, Teacher of the Year caught in affair. You'll be ruined. Your parents' entire legacy will burn. So what's it going to be? I felt her hot tears hit my skin. I patted her back like I was putting a child to sleep. Choose. Elena broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It was smaller than that. More horrifying. Her body slowly went limp beneath the hospital blankets. Her fingers unclenched from the sheets. Her eyes emptied out like someone had blown a candle inside her chest. Then she gave the tiniest nod. I smiled softly and brushed the hair from her damp forehead. Good girl, I whispered. The doctor returned with a sedative syringe. She's extremely distressed, he said carefully. Family should avoid upsetting her further. Her father immediately pointed his cane toward the hallway like a weapon. That bastard is going to prison. Her mother burst into another fit of sobbing. My daughter's life is ruined. Meanwhile, Elena stared straight ahead at nothing. I almost pitied her. Almost. But then I remembered the messages. The ones I found 3 months ago when Elena accidentally left her tablet unlocked at my apartment. Marcus laughing with her about my wedding dress fittings. Elena joking about how stupid I looked practicing vows in the mirror. Marcus writing, after the honeymoon I'll finally be free of her. And Elena replying, you should have dumped her sooner. 3 years together. 7 years of friendship. And they'd been sleeping together behind my back for almost 10 months. So no. I didn't feel guilty. I felt efficient. The police came back an hour later requesting Elena's official statement. The room instantly stiffened. Her father stood beside the bed like a prison guard. Her mother clutched tissues with trembling hands. And I sat quietly near the window, saying nothing. The officer softened his voice. Miss Elena, can you tell us whether the encounter in the parking garage was consensual? Elena's lips parted. For one dangerous second, I thought she might tell the truth. Then her eyes drifted toward her father's cane, toward her mother's devastated expression, toward me. I tilted my head slightly, just enough. Her throat bobbed. Then tears spilled silently down her face. No, she whispered. The officer's face hardened immediately as he wrote something down. Behind him, I watched Elena completely shatter. Good. Marcus made bail 2 days later. His family had money. Enough money to slow things down. Not enough to stop the internet. By then the story had exploded everywhere. Teacher of the Year assaulted in corporate garage. Predatory executive arrested after public attack. Anonymous witnesses claimed they heard screaming. Someone uploaded blurry footage of me attacking the car with the extinguisher. The comments worshipped me. A true friend. Women protecting women. That poor teacher. Marcus became public enemy #1 overnight. His company suspended him immediately. Sponsors dropped him. His mother called me screaming 3 days later. You lying little bitch, she shrieked through the phone. Marcus says it was consensual. I let silence tremble for a moment before quietly whispering. Then why was Elena screaming? Click. I hung up. By the end of the week, Marcus looked half dead. There were bruises under his eyes from interrogation and media harassment. He cornered me outside the courthouse after a preliminary hearing. You ruined me, he hissed. I looked at him calmly. You ruined yourself when you cheated on me. It wasn't assault. Doesn't matter anymore. His face twisted. Then suddenly he laughed. A raw, exhausted sound. You think she'll stay loyal to you after this? That almost made me smile. Because Marcus still didn't understand. This had never been about loyalty. It was about punishment. Elena already betrayed me once. I said softly. Now she gets to spend the rest of her life trapped inside the lie that destroyed you. His expression cracked. For the first time since the garage, real fear entered his eyes. You're insane. Probably. Then I leaned closer. But unlike you two, I plan ahead. The trial never happened, because Elena's father made sure it disappeared first. Quietly. Expensively. The official story became insufficient evidence. No conviction. No prison. But honestly, that was worse. Because the accusation never vanished. People still whispered. Women crossed the street when Marcus walked by. His company forced him to resign. No one wanted their brand associated with a man accused of assaulting a beloved teacher. And Elena? She kept her job. Technically. But parents began staring too long during pickup. Co-workers whispered in hallways. Everyone treated her delicately. Fragile. Damaged. Like cracked glass. Exactly the kind of pity she hated most. 6 months later, she came to my apartment alone. She looked thinner. Older. The spark she used to wear so proudly was gone. I opened the door slowly. Neither of us spoke at first. Then finally she whispered. Why? I folded my arms. You really have to ask? Tears welled instantly in her eyes. We loved each other. I laughed so suddenly she flinched. You loved sneaking around behind my back. Her voice shook harder. We were going to tell you eventually. After the wedding? Silence. That answered enough. Elena covered her face and began sobbing. You destroyed everything. No, I corrected quietly. I redirected it. She stared at me in horror. And for the first time, she truly saw me. Not the cheerful best friend. Not the loyal maid of honor. Something colder. Smarter. More dangerous. You could have just left him, she whispered. I could have. I stepped closer. But then you both would have moved on happily while I carried the humiliation alone. I smiled faintly. That didn't seem fair. Elena stumbled backward like she couldn't breathe. Before leaving, she stopped at the doorway. Do you ever feel guilty? I thought about it honestly, then shook my head. You cried for help in that car, I said softly. I simply made sure the whole world heard you. After she left, I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. My phone buzzed with another news notification about Marcus losing a civil contract. I muted it. Then I raised my glass slightly toward the dark reflection staring back at me. Revenge, I'd learned, wasn't rage. Rage was sloppy. Revenge was precision. And mine had been nearly perfect. 3 months later, Elena disappeared. Not literally. Socially. Professionally. Emotionally. She still taught at the elementary school downtown, but she moved through life like someone serving a sentence. Parents stopped requesting her class. Co-workers lowered their voices when she entered the staff lounge. Men no longer flirted with her. Women watched her with that poisonous mixture of pity and suspicion reserved for public scandals. Victims made people uncomfortable, especially beautiful ones. Meanwhile, Marcus was spiraling publicly. Drunk photos. Bar fights. One leaked voicemail where he screamed. It was consensual. Over and over until his voice cracked. Nobody cared. That's the funny thing about public opinion. Once people decide who the villain is, facts stop mattering. And I thrived. I moved into a better apartment. Started sleeping again. Started smiling naturally again. For the first time in months, I felt light. Then one night my doorbell rang. I opened it expecting takeout. Instead, Marcus stood there soaked from the rain. He looked terrible. Unshaven. Hollow-eyed. Exhausted down to the bone. I immediately tried closing the door. He shoved his hand against it. 5 minutes. No. Please. That word almost shocked me more than his appearance. Marcus never said please. I stared at him a long moment before finally stepping aside. He entered slowly, looking around my apartment like it belonged to a stranger. I used to have a key here, he murmured. You also used to have self-control. His jaw tightened. I loved you. I barked out a laugh. You cheated on me with my best friend in a parking garage. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Oh, Well, that changes everything. He dragged a hand down his face. We were drunk that day. 10 months drunk. Silence again. Rain hammered the windows. Finally he looked at me directly. Why didn't you just expose the affair? Because that would have been mercy. Because cheating scandals faded. Because eventually people forgave affairs. But assault allegations? Those lived forever. Instead I shrugged lightly. You embarrassed me. Marcus stared at me like he no longer recognized the woman he dated for 3 years. Then quietly, Elena tried to kill herself. The room went still. Not because I felt guilt, but because I genuinely hadn't expected that. When? Last week. My fingers tightened slightly around my wine glass. She swallowed sleeping pills. His voice sounded scraped raw. Her mother found her. I looked away toward the rain. Alive. Good. Dead people ended suffering too quickly. She keeps saying she can't breathe anymore, Marcus whispered. Everywhere she goes people look at her like she's broken. A long silence stretched between us. Then I finally asked, why are you telling me this? His eyes reddened instantly. Because I think you wanted this more than you wanted justice. That hit closer than I liked. So I smiled. Cold and sharp. And you think sleeping with my best friend for almost a year was justice? No, he snapped. But this is monstrous. I stepped closer slowly. You know what was monstrous? My voice stayed frighteningly calm. Helping Elena zip up wedding dresses. Listening to her help me choose flowers while she was sleeping with my fiancé. Marcus flinched. You think I don't remember every single moment now? I whispered. Every laugh. Every fake smile. Every lie. His face twisted with shame. Good. I hate you, he said finally. No, I corrected softly. You hate that I won. That broke whatever composure he had left. You ruined all 3 of our lives. I tilted my head. Mine was already ruined the second I found out. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Marcus did something unexpected. He started crying. Not dramatic sobbing. Just exhausted, defeated tears. I did love you, he whispered again. And annoyingly enough, I believed him. People were messy like that. They betrayed people they loved every day. I suddenly felt tired. Tired of him. Tired of Elena. Tired of carrying the poison around like it still served a purpose. So I opened the front door. Go home, Marcus. He stood there a moment longer. Then quietly asked, if you could do it over again, would you still destroy us? I looked at him honestly. That took longer to answer. Finally I said, I don't know. Which was the closest thing to regret I could offer. Marcus left without another word. A week later, Elena resigned from teaching. 2 months after that, she moved overseas with relatives. I never saw her again. Marcus drifted too. Last I heard, he was working for some small logistics company in another city where nobody recognized his face. And me? Life moved on. That's the strange thing about revenge. People imagine it feels triumphant forever. It doesn't. Eventually it just becomes another thing that happened to you. Another scar. Another story you replay at 2 a.m. wondering whether you crossed the line long before the other person did. Sometimes I still think about that parking garage. The shattered glass. The screaming. The moment I realized I had the power to completely rewrite 2 people's lives. And sometimes, late at night, I remember Elena crying beneath that coat while I held her down and called her a victim. That's usually when sleep stops coming easily. But every time guilt starts creeping in, I remember the messages. After the honeymoon, I'll finally be free of her. And just like that, the guilt disappears again. A year later, I got married. Not to some grand love of my life. Just a kind man named Daniel who never made me question where he was at night. Peace turned out to be far more attractive than passion. The wedding was small. Quiet. No dramatic vows. No fake best friend standing beside me holding stolen secrets. Just honesty. Halfway through the reception, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For some reason, I opened it. It was a photo. Marcus. Older now. Tired. Standing outside some tiny apartment building smoking alone. Underneath it was one sentence. We deserved consequences. Just not that many. No signature. No explanation. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. Not angrily. Not triumphantly. Just calmly. Because the truth was, none of us had really won. Marcus lost his future. Elena lost herself. And I lost the version of me that once believed betrayal should be answered with dignity instead of destruction. Daniel appeared beside me then, gently wrapping an arm around my waist. You okay? I looked up at him. At the warm lights. The soft music. The simple life I'd nearly destroyed chasing revenge hard enough to satisfy the humiliation inside me. Then I smiled faintly. Yeah, I said. And this time, for once, I wasn't lying.